Welcome to the Unconventional Path, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Stories and Ideas. I'm Bela Musits. Since our first episode on September 8th, 2018, when Mike and I were still both professors at Clarkson University, we've released over 180 episodes featuring some truly excellent content. We've been exploring how to make the most of this extensive archive. We've initially spent 4 months trying various different AI systems to extract key concepts and to create a themed summary set of episodes. But let me just say, the results were consistently unsatisfactory. So much for AI, at least as it stands today. As a result, we've decided to reissue some of our past episodes. Our selection criteria are based on finding a historic episode that relates to the most recently published new episode. This connection can be through the market segment, the entrepreneur's background, the type of business, or other factors. This specific reissue was originally released in November of 2020 and features Tyler Ornstein, the founder of Tyler's Acid-Free Coffee. Tyler, much like Dave Munson, founder of Saddleback Leather Company, which was our most recent episode, was able to successfully launch a business in a very competitive market. He did this by establishing a clear and distinctive product differentiator. Mike and I believe this is a critical element for the success of these two companies. It's also important to note that neither of them competes on price. As a matter of fact, they charge a premium price for their product. Many of these older episodes were recorded as audio only. If that's the case, for those of you watching on video, you will only see some still images. We hope you enjoy this re-released podcast episode. The Unconventional Path, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Stories and Ideas. Hello, I'm Bela Musits.
And I'm Mike Wasserman.
Today, we are excited to be joined by Tyler Ornstein. Tyler founded Tyler's Coffee, the first acid-free coffee. And he did this as a 15-year-old, with a little help from his dad. It's a real fascinating story, and as you will see, Tyler's story and personality are very different from most of our previous guests.
Okay, Bela, I'm intrigued now. Let's give this interview a listen.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today, I have a great guest, Tyler Ornstein. He started a company called Tyler's Coffee back when he was 15 years old, and that was a number of years ago. It's a great success on how a business can find its niche in a very crowded market and establish itself in this crowded market, even when there's some big giants in there. So welcome to the show, Tyler.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolutely. When you just talked a little bit about that in your intro, niche marketing is probably one of the best and most successful ways for people to succeed in industry. And I know firsthand because we're in the largest industry next to oil. We're in a $1.6 trillion industry. And it's just amazing how we're able to niche out a segment in the market so that we could actually, give back to the society as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because one of the things that this new economy, this new digital economy, the ability to use places like Amazon and the digital world to sell to anyone, anywhere around the world, gives you that opportunity to build a niche. Because the whole world is fundamentally your customer, or at least a very small segment of the whole world, right? What town are you in again?
Tucson.
Tucson. So if you were in Tucson and the only place, 100 years ago, the only place you could sell your coffee would be Tucson. That would be your whole market. Well, these days you can sell it in the whole world. And that really allows companies to focus and develop that niche. So I
was also very lucky to be essentially, outside of one other company that I won't name, we were the first on the web to have a subscription model. And it wasn't easy. We actually had to hire a coder to do all the source code for our first subscription, because no one had it. No one knew how to do it. No one knew how to reoccur billing. Now every single major company out there is a reoccurring billing process.
Sure.
So, but no, I mean, it's funny because I never really have talked about this on anyone's show, but I will, because we're kind of going down that road. I will say this. It's amazing that I had so many visionary ideas that came to fruition. And in the tech space, it's like, oh my God, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this. Come to find out, you need millions of dollars, and you need hedge funds behind you, and you need a lot more resources than just an idea. But it was very interesting that I actually had that kind of forward vision.
Yeah. Well, a lot of entrepreneurs do. And the challenge, of course, is to take those ideas and turn them into something tangible and something real. And that's what separates the successful entrepreneurs from the dreamers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for those people who don't know, tell us a little bit about Tyler's Coffee and sort of why it's unique.
Absolutely. So Tyler's Coffee is so unique because we are the world's first and only acid-free coffee. We're coffee that doesn't give you heartburn and indigestion, upset stomach. We're smooth with no bitter bite. And
so I just have a helicopter going over, so I apologize for the background noise. So what's important to some individuals about acid-free coffee? Why is that important to some people? Well, I mean, it's crucially important to everyone, and I'll explain why. When you drink anything that has a low pH, I'm not talking coffee, I'm talking soda, I'm talking alcohol, I'm talking fast food, I'm talking anything that has a low pH. What happens is your body wants to stay at a neutrality, 7.3 to 7.6, roughly in there. And so when you eat an acidic property, you get a deduction. And that deduction in the body goes, okay, we're out of homeostasis. We need to add enzymes to the liver. We need to put more bile in the pancreas. We need to make sure that we can, process this negative beast so that we can get back into neutrality. And it's very interesting because being a coffee salesman of sorts, I learned a lot more about the medical field. So much so that, I went for my OEC, outdoor emergency care, and it's like one step down from EMT. And I learned a lot about the human body and how the human body works, and it was very, very intriguing, and I enjoyed it tremendously. But the takeaway from that was that Tyler's Coffees is such a beneficial aspect to everyone's life because they don't actually have to add cream and sugar to get the pH to where your body's going to be happy. They can actually drink this coffee because we don't bloom the tannin and lipid acids in the roasting process. By not blooming the tannin and lipid acids in the roasting process, we're able to yield a neutral pH. And so for people that have Crohn's, GERD, interstitial cystitis, leaky gut, OAB, colitis of any sort, bladder lining disorders, GI disorders. There was a study done by the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation in North America, and I bring this up a lot because it's a very unique study. And that study was done where 50 million Americans suffer from stomach-related issues. It was done in 2016. And so if you actually look at it, it's gone up. It hasn't gone down. People, especially during COVID, people started eating a lot worse. They started eating a lot more fast food. They started eating a lot more non-healthy food because it also ties in with depression. Long story short, Tyler's Coffees is that product that people love. And we know that people love it because we have an 80% retention rate on our coffee. Now, I don't know any other coffee out there in the industry that actually has that loyal of a customer base. Wow. So there is something unique that you do in the roasting process? Is that the place? Yeah.
Yeah, so people think that we add or we delete. We don't do either. What happens is that when you have cellular membrane of any plant-based system, it has to have photosynthesis. Well, photosynthesis, the way it gets photosynthesis is through tannic and lipid acids. Now, what happens is, like, for example, on a show that I was on, they said, "Well, what about tea, Tyler?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, you don't roast tea, you steep tea." So it's a different process. When you have a green bean and you have to roast it, if you over roast it, you'll bloom the tannin and lipid acids. So we're able to use a computer roasting process that's proprietary that actually roasts each individual bean by itself, so that there's no deformities in the roasting procedure, and there's no essentially the parameters are identical from one bean to the other bean, and that's what's amazing about another thing that's amazing about Tyler's coffees is the quality control is at like a 98.6%. So every bag that comes off the line is identical. And it's really important because people that are our customers, they call it we call it subscription, they call it a prescription. And it's kind of like, yeah, we're at the point where we're at a medical level because these are people that cannot have acid in their diet, or they will have horrible reverse side effects.
Wow. And how did you develop this roasting process?
So my father actually developed the process. So the story goes that he and I kind of enjoyed coffee together at a very young age. And he started getting upset stomach after drinking coffee. And so he went to his GI doctor, and his GI doctor said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but you can't have coffee anymore. You have ulcers." And he goes, "Well, that's not an option." And so the doc's like, "Well, okay, you can do whatever you want, but it's just going to be painful." So he started doing a lot of research because he's a research guy. He's a research man. He loves research. And he come to find out what the negative acids were that were causing inflammation. And then he went up to Phoenix and he talked to electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and they said, "Hey, can we build this process?" And so they did a lot of trial and error. And about 16 years ago, my father came to me and he had this silver pack and he said, "Hey, go out there and try to sell the coffee." And all I did was I would just go on a bike and I would hand out a coffee bag and I would say, "Give me your name and number. I'll call you and see what you think." And I'll never forget this very, very sweet old lady. I called her and I said, "Hi, this is Tyler. I just dropped off that coffee sample a week ago. I wanted to see what you think about it." She goes, "Oh, I actually enjoyed it a lot. I really liked it a lot. Where do I get it?" And being 14 years old, and from me, "Okay, how much is it?" $1. I didn't really have the business mindset, right? This is all just a test market per se, and by taking that test market, we then created. So we had conception, test market, viable product, monetary gain. So that was a light bulb moment. I said, okay, not only do people like the coffee, well, some people said it's okay. Some people, this was R&D. This was first gen. And from there, I said, okay, well, why don't we see if this person can be duplicated? And at the time, 2004, 2005, the internet was starting to pick up. Facebook just became a thing. It's crazy to think, but Facebook just became a thing. So we got on Facebook, and then we started doing a website, and then so in 2016, I got my first retail location, AJ's Fine Food, which longest customer, beautiful customer, great customer here in Arizona, in our backyard. And they said, "Okay, well, Tyler, you need a $3 million insurance policy." And I said, "Well, I don't think I have a $3 million anything." And they're like, no, you need a policy of $3 million. So what I'm saying is as a very young entrepreneur, I had to learn all of these very unique and different concepts. And at the same time, I was a swimmer in my high school and I was going to school. And so I had a really, really heavy load. But I started learning very, very quickly at a young age that I didn't really need commercial education. Is the best way for me to explain it. They would, why, and again, I don't want to offend any of your listeners because I think education is the most important thing in the world. But on the other hand, I think that there is uh, I don't know that.
Well, there's more than one way to get an education.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Right?
And so, yeah, exactly. And so when you have an education that is tied to a monetary gain, the incentive goes absolutely through the roof. When you have an education that's tied to a letter on a piece of transcript, it's a little bit of a different ballgame. Anyway, the point is at a very young age, I learned a lot, and I started becoming quite successful with my company, and I was spending more time at lunchtime at school talking to clients on my phone than I was talking to my friends. It was a very, very interesting dynamic. But I will say this because I strongly believe in this. If you're going to work hard, you should play harder. And that's why it makes you want to work. And so in 2006, when I got my driver's license, 2 months later, not my parents bought, I bought my vehicle. And I was when I showed up with my BMW M3, people started taking notice of, wow, Tyler's been kind of antisocial, but holy cow, he's really doing something.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, how big is your business now? How many employees, et cetera?
So we've got two offices. We've got one warehouse. The warehouse employs about 15 people. We work with the Beacon Foundation, which is a nonprofit, and they hire on people that have mental challenges. And we were very, very blessed that we're working with them. So, but they hire 20 people just for Tyler's because we have such a volume. We've got 6 people in one office, 2 people in the other office. We're in just shy of 1,000 stores across the country. We're on Amazon, Walmart, eBay, Jet, Wish. We're on a lot of online platforms.
Yeah. That's phenomenal growth, particularly for something that's a commodity and you're competing against, the big guys, Procter and Gamble, et cetera. So
Yeah, and so that kind of is a great segue. So yeah, at a very young age, I learned that why am I going to beat my head against multi-billion-dollar conglomerates when I can create a solution to a problem that's been pre-existing? And for entrepreneurs listening, the most important thing in business, it's just one word. I've boiled it down to one word. And please tell me if I'm wrong. But the one word is very simple. It's called help. HELP. Now, what I mean by that is if you can create a product or a service that helps, you will be astronomically successful. I cannot stress that enough. You will be so successful, you won't know where to bank all your money. And before COVID, I would fly around and I would speak and, be interviewed, and they would ask the questions. And then, okay, Tyler, you started at 14 years old. You're now here. You did this. It's amazing. Wow. All right. Hey, everyone, let's give Tyler a round of applause. I'd come off stage, and of course, the line would form, and I'd talk to everyone. That's what I would do. And a lot of people would say to me, oh, how much does it cost for me to be coached by you? And I was like, it's free. Like, what do you mean? I was like, it's free. FREE. It's free. And they're like, well, how can it be free? And I'm like, because I want to help. I want to support other entrepreneurs. Now, here's the deal. If you want me to like really divulge and then drive into your business, yeah, we can look at equity position or we can look at a salary or whatever. But I don't believe and again, I kind of turned the speaking industry on its head. I like doing that. What I'm great at is disruptive technology. I enjoy it. It's something that I really just get a kick out of doing. I don't think anyone should charge to talk to someone. I think that that's a right. I don't think that's a
Yeah.
privilege.
Yeah. Well, the way you characterized help and a product that helps, that's I haven't heard anyone else talk about it in that way. So that was very
Yeah,
nice. That's a keeper. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a keeper.
absolutely.
Uh, so do you guys still roast all your own beans, even though with
Oh,
all this growth?
absolutely we do.
Okay.
Absolutely we do. Yeah.
And so you're like you said, you're in Amazon, you're in Walmart, you're at Jet. So what does it take? I mean, a lot of people are always, asking themselves, "Hey, I have my product idea. I got a little bit of traction. I want to get on the shelves at Walmart, or I want to get into Amazon." So
Hmm.
can you give some hints and some tips on what people should do, and at what point they should start considering that? In other words, what's the toll gate you got to kind of go through
Sure.
before you even knock on that door?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Getting into retail, brick and mortar retail, is the equivalent of dating. And what I mean by that is when you're dating, if you're too aggressive, you're texting the girl, you're calling her every other day, you're really in her face. She's gonna get turned off, and she's gonna be like, "F off," right? And so what you're doing is with the buyer, you're courting them. That's the best way I can explain it. So you do touch points. You say, "Hey, I'll follow up with you next week," or "Oh, when's a great time for me to talk to you next?" Or put the ball in their court all the time. Um, it took us about 50 phone calls to get to the buyer for us to even have an intro conversation with natural grocers. And so, in that 50 calls took about 2.5 years. So figure out how long you have to wait until you start calling again. If you're calling every day, you will be seen in the industry as, "Don't talk to that guy. He's crazy."
Yeah.
It's a very fine line between keeping them in your head and "this guy is crazy."
Yeah, yeah, and sort of how big do you need to be in order to get into a grocery chain or get into Walmart? Is there some sort of threshold where
It's
unless
not
you're that
really,
big, don't
yeah.
even call?
There's a really interesting stigma around that. It's not really how big do you have to be for them to talk to you. It's how interesting do you have to have a product for them to put it on the shelf. If we started with natural grocers, we started with like 15 of them. We're now in all of them. We're in like over, I think they have 180 stores. I don't quote me on that, but it's around there. Um, and Hy-Vee is an interesting grocery store too, because they've got 300 stores and we're in about 30 of them. And we've asked multiple times, we'd love to have your ability to come into your distribution center so that you guys can distribute it out. And they're like, "Well, no, we're not ready for you yet. Oh, well, we're looking at your, sale through rates. Oh, well, we're doing this. Oh, well, you need to put some marketing dollars behind us. Oh, and so, remember, it's you're trying to get them to say yes. It's not the other way around. So again, I cannot stress it enough. It's like dating. I mean, if you don't put yourself out there, you're probably not going to get a date.
Right,
But on the other hand, you can't be seen as a creeper.
right, right. Excellent, excellent. So, what's sort of preventing the big guys from introducing their own version of acid-free coffee?
They can't do it. So we have a proprietary process, and we've had it for 16 years. And even Starbucks has tried with the blonde roast. There is a lot of low acid coffees out there, a heck of a lot. But we're the world's first and only acid-free coffee. Another thing is what we did is we did do a trademark, so they would be in violation of the trademark. But the reality of it is we're the only coffee out there that actually says what we really say we are.
Yeah. So you have a proprietary process.
Yes,
Not
sir.
a trade secret. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. And that's the one you said your biochemist genius father came up with.
Yeah, so it was three people, and he was the chemistry behind it, and then we need electrical engineer, and mechanical engineer.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So, what do you see for Tyler's Coffee going forward?
Um, I mean, talk about getting into grocery. We want to get into Sprouts and we want to get into Whole Foods, and we thought that we were going to get into Sprouts and Whole Foods in this year. In 2019, I said, okay, for this year, our initiative is 2020 is going to be Sprouts and Whole Foods. Nope. COVID happened and it all went to, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, COVID's been a huge disruptor. Uh,
But the
in many
sales
things.
directly, tylerscoffees.com and Amazon and all the online retailers went through the roof. So it's not that we didn't lose money this year. We actually went up about 40%, which is insane. But it would be nice to have the extra retail locations.
Yeah.
That would be, and hopefully 2021 is going to be a good year for business. It's an election year. I'm not going to talk about the politics on that, but I think it makes sense that if we have a former businessman that was a billionaire and he's made the economy great for the last 4 years, then probably his track record is going to stay the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let me ask you one last question here. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't?
I've never been asked that question. That's an amazing question.
Yeah. What other points? What other important points are
Is
there?
there any interview question that you have that you want to talk about that you haven't asked? Um, well, I mean, I guess I'm going to be a little selfish here. Can I tell your listeners how to get our coffee?
Of course, absolutely. We want
Okay,
to do that anyway. Yeah.
if you go to tylerscoffees.com, we have a code running right now where it's Tyler 2020, all lowercase, Tyler 2020, 20% off for the rest of the year. And also, if you go on Amazon, it's really cost effective. Now, let me just kind of touch on that real quick. If people go to Amazon and buy Tyler's coffees, they'll be getting Tyler's coffees. They're not getting the counterfeit coffee. But what they're not going to get is they're not going to get the customer service. They literally can call us 24/7 and place an order and talk to a live human. They also, if there's any issue whatsoever and damage of shipping or they got the wrong order or whatever, it's all taken care of. No questions asked. We just take care of it. Amazon, we've actually had some funny things happen where customers have called us and said, "Hey, I ordered this on Amazon. I got the wrong product. Can you send me out?" And I say, "I'm sorry, we cannot. It's not our Amazon listing selling. We sell to over 20 different listers on Amazon, and it's growing. And it's funny because we didn't ever think that we were going to get this much demand for the brand. I mean, it's crazy sauce. Like we started with like 3 retailers on Amazon. Now we're at 20 retailers and it's growing. Like I've got 3 more inquiries. Now everyone runs a MAP policy, which is, you cannot go above or under minimum advertised price. But it blows my mind. Some of these people are selling it for $40 a bag.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but good on them. And so if you go to tylerscoffees.com, you're going to get the best customer service. It's like going to the dealership. You know, if you're going to go to the dealership, you're going to get the customer service. If you're going to go to a used car lot on the side of the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is even though people can buy it on Amazon, it's actually through third parties are selling that on Amazon.
That's correct.
And not you. Whereas if you go to Tyler's, and that's plural, right? Tyler's with an S on the end.
Yep.
Coffee.com, then they're buying it directly from you.
That's right.
And till the end of the year, you're running a 20% discount and using the code Tyler 2020.
And if you get on subscription, it's free shipping.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Excellent. Hey, Tyler, this has really been an interesting story. You know, there's not a lot of businesses that are successful in such a crowded market, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough. And you know, there's little community roasters all over the place. There's these boutique roasters that have popped up, and probably every town has one. But you've gone way beyond that. You're a much larger business and very successful. And it's a great story. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate everything that you've done. And, you know, the best way I can end this is if you want to be an entrepreneur, there is one thing that you need to do. You need to jump in the deep end, and you need to figure out how to swim. Or better yet, you need to put yourself on top of Mount Everest and then jump off, and you have to assemble an airplane on the way down. This is not for the light, and this is not for the faint of heart. Entrepreneurialism is the most craziest, wildest thing that you can get your hands on. You're never, ever, ever going to get a steady income being an entrepreneur. So for anyone out there that's thinking about moving from, you know, a structured job that's safe and comfortable to the wild unknown, if you're ready, rock it. But if you're not, just, you know, don't do it. And I don't mean that in a negative context. I mean that in the most loving way. I would never tell someone to do something that they're not 100% on board with, to a point where it's fanatic. You know, you're just like, I don't care what's going to happen. I'm going to make this a success.
Yeah, well, that was a great summary and a great way to end the podcast. Thank you very much for being a guest, Tyler.
Thank you.
Well, Bela, you were right. He was different than a lot of our other guests, but you know, different can be good. And there's a lot of paths, right, to entrepreneurial success, and this one is a little bit different than some of our other guests, as you kind of led off with. But what did you think? What struck you as really interesting about your conversation with Tyler?
So the first thing I want to talk about is I think this is a great example of finding a niche, a super small niche for your product that's valuable, very valuable to your customers. So if you can establish a product that's of great value to a small set of customers, you can make yourself a very nice business out of that, right? I mean, coffee roasting is coffee roasting is coffee roasting. I think Tyler's our third guest, actually, that's been roasting coffee beans. So it's a crowded market. And this acid-free, which for certain people is important because it's the only way they can drink coffee, is a real lesson in this notion of carving out a niche for yourself and really identifying yourself and connecting yourself with customers, and you're providing your customers a great value proposition. And I think that's lesson number one. I think lesson number two is, as you alluded to, Mike, is this notion of various different ways of approaching a business. There are various different ways, and there's books written about different ways of doing this. And there is no right or wrong way. There's what works for you, and there's what works for the people that you work with and the people that you surround yourself with. And then as a result of that, a certain type of culture, a certain type of leadership style, a certain type of management style will emerge. And to some extent, it's sort of self-fulfilling, because employees who identify with that and who like that way of leadership will gravitate towards it. And people who don't will gravitate away from it towards some other type of leadership style or management style. So they're all good. This diversity is important because we all tend to migrate towards sort of different corners of the room, and the room has more than four corners, right? So I think that this is a great example of that. And you sort of contrast it a little bit to a previous recent episode, the Merino wool fella, Dan Dembski, right? And if you listen to him, he had this very sort of, gosh, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying different things, et cetera. And you got sort of a very different flavor from him on how the culture of that business is versus Tyler's culture and the business of, or the culture of Tyler's business. And again, not making a judgment here, they both work, right? They both work. And that to me is another real important point with this conversation with Tyler.
Yeah, it's important to understand and listen and respect and appreciate different styles, right? But as an investor, right, you can choose who you invest in. And as an employee, I can choose where I work, right? And it's just important to kind of see this and listen to people and figure out where they're coming from and do you want to be a part of it or not? I actually am definitely a fan of it's actually great to disagree with some of the people that you work with, as long as you can do it in a respectful way and truly listen and look at different points of view, that's actually really beneficial. And a lot of the research on kind of deep diversity amongst viewpoints is good for an organization, supports this. So it's not just by gender or race or religion, but really truly different ways of conceiving of the business that you're in. And this is an example where I think, Tyler's approach to sales and Tyler's approach to marketing or even dealing with the public are probably different than what I lay out for my students, but I always leave room for other approaches. And certainly he's been successful. And it's worth listening to people who look at things or say things that are different than the way you approach them. So yeah, I totally agree, Bela. And I think it's a good point to wrap it up on, that this is an interesting story. A young person who really worked hard to find success in a niche market and has grown it. But also it kind of identified some differences in leadership and communication styles that are out there that are all valid. And it's a big tent. There's room for all of us, right?
Yep. Agreed, Mike. Agreed. Well said.
All right. Well, listeners, thanks for joining us. We hope you found this episode interesting and thought-provoking. If you have questions about what we discussed, please feel free to drop us an email at bela.and.mike@gmail.com.
And hey, please do subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. And tell your friends about us. We're always looking to get some more listeners. So until next time, signing off from upstate New York. See you soon, Mike.
Thanks, Bela. And from over here in Münster, Germany, auf Wiedersehen.